Some video game trailers hit you the very second they start. Not with noise or spectacle, but with the feeling that someone dared to imagine differently. There's a quiet boldness to them, a sense that the world you're glimpsing wasn't built to chase trends or check boxes, but to express something real. Something personal, like a painting half finished, but already full of life. And in this case, it caught me off guard. Because, well, Western stories have mastered the art of building incredible worlds. They have mountains and cities that stretch for miles, crafted down to the finest detail, but too often they forget to leave space for wonder. The same kind of wonder that made the best JRPGs timeless. Clair Obscur feels like it's echoing that same spirit, but with a voice that is unmistakably its own. Familiar yet strange, old yet new. Now look, maybe it's only the trailer doing what trailers are meant to do, right? Choosing the right shots, the right music, the right mood. Maybe I'm reading too much into a few cherry-picked moments. I mean, we all know just how common it is for trailers to be vastly superior to the final product these days. But even so, there's something about Clair Obscur that just feels different. A potential bridge between two traditions, the grounded craftsmanship of Western RPGs and the imaginative heart of their Japanese counterparts. And sometimes, it's in that space where two traditions brush against each other, the grounded and the dreamlike, that something special can begin to take shape.
Lumia is not my home. Not the way it is for you.
Before getting into what exactly makes Clair Obscur so striking to me, it's worth looking at where it comes from. Sandfall Interactive is a new French studio, founded in 2020, and Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is their first project. A lot of the team comes from big names such as Ubisoft, Epic Games, places known for massive, technically ambitious titles. Well, debatably. But right from the start, Sandfall seems determined to do something different. They clearly aren't interested in chasing trends or building yet another open world checklist, and I imagine they separated from their old companies specifically to get away from all of that. Their goal, from everything they've said so far, is to create something handcrafted, something emotional, something that sits at the crossroads of cinematic storytelling, artistic world building, and traditional RPG mechanics. Clair Obscur seems to grow directly from that vision, a game that doesn't just aim to look good, but to feel different. And even from the early glimpses we have, it already carries that ambition. Through the narrow window into their world that these trailers allow us, you can see that vision certainly taking shape. It's not only in the gameplay systems or the visual style, but in the way that every piece of the world seems designed to evoke a feeling, a sense of something larger beneath the surface.
Soon she'll wake and paint again. Paint a new number, ticking down every year. One stroke, and everyone of that age vanishes into nothingness. Every year she paints again, and every year an expedition departs for the continent with one hopeless mission: destroy the paintress so she can never paint death again.
Now, to me as a storyteller, I'm often captured first by a game's premise, and the premise we have here is genuinely fascinating. In the world of Clair Obscur, a being known as the Paintress awakens once a year and erases people from existence. Not through violence or conquest, but through sheer will, through art. With every year, fewer and fewer people remain, until only a final generation is left to face her. Now, even from this brief setup, I can immediately see the potential of the story simply by the fact Sandfall has opted to go for something so personal. It's not the familiar story of heroes rising against an evil empire or an ancient evil per se. It's something more surreal, more existential. The threat doesn't just seem to be about survival, it's about memory and identity. The slow, quiet erasure of everything that made the world worth remembering. It's the kind of setup that immediately feels heavier than it looks. It suggests a story where loss isn't a tragic twist at the end, it's woven into the fabric of the world from the very beginning. A story where wonder and melancholy exist side by side, where beauty is inseparable from decay. The same quiet sadness that shapes the story seems stitched into the world itself. It's quiet, worn, and beautiful in a way that already feels half forgotten. Now, what's striking about Clair Obscur isn't just that it looks beautiful. Western studios have been creating breathtaking worlds for years, but what's different is the kind of beauty it's reaching for. You see, most Western RPGs aim for realism, for grounded settings, familiar histories, believable politics, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But Clair Obscur feels like it's aiming for something else entirely, something closer to a dream, a world that isn't just lived in but imagined. If you just look at the way the environments flow, the way the landscapes twist between the surreal and the familiar, it just feels more aligned with the kinds of worlds we often see in classic JRPGs. Worlds built not to mirror reality per se, but to stir something deeper, something mythic, something emotional. And yet, it still carries a Western identity. It doesn't fall into anime aesthetics or familiar tropes. It feels like its own voice, shaped by Western hands, but dreaming with a spirit that feels rare for the genre. And this is apparent in no area more than its gameplay. In a gaming landscape increasingly dominated by real-time action, Clair Obscur chooses to go turn-based, and that choice says a lot. Now, a little side note about me. I grew up loving the stories and settings of JRPGs, but hating their gameplay specifically because they were so often turn-based. But over the years, and as I've got older, I've learned to appreciate turn-based gameplay a lot more, and whilst personally I do still prefer real-time mechanics, turn-based can be fun and refreshing as an option for me when I want to break away from that. And this is yet another reason why I'm personally looking forward to this game. Now, besides Larian Studios with their Divinity games and Baldur's Gate 3, I would argue that today turn-based combat is still more associated with JRPGs than with Western RPGs. But interestingly, even studios like Square Enix, who helped define turn-based systems with the original Final Fantasy games, have shifted towards real-time combat in their latest titles, much to the dismay of many, even if, personally, I think it's a good change of pace. But this is why Clair Obscur choosing turn-based in 2025 isn't just nostalgia, it feels intentional, a commitment to a different rhythm of storytelling. It's the most obvious way the game seems to draw from the spirit of classic JRPGs, not copying their surface, but respecting the slower, more thoughtful relationship between player and world that turn-based systems naturally create. But there is a quiet irony to that, isn't there? Because at a time when many JRPGs are moving towards real-time combat to chase modern tastes, it's a Western RPG that chooses to slow things down again. A kind of gameplay that invites you to think, to feel the weight of every action instead of chasing constant motion. Clair Obscur feels like it's reaching back to that older rhythm, one built on patience and intention, even as the genre that wants to find that very same style moves on. I'll even mention how what we've heard of the soundtrack already sounds beautiful, emotional, restrained, and full of feeling. You've been hearing it throughout this entire video, and even without the full story behind it, I'm sure you'll agree that the music already feels like it belongs to a world worth remembering. If Clair Obscur can carry that same feeling throughout the full experience, delivering not just a few standout tracks, but a score that truly moves with the story, it could easily outclass most other Western RPGs in this area. Because whilst many of them deliver impressive atmospheric music, they rarely chase the kind of emotional storytelling that a great soundtrack can create. The best RPGs have always understood that, how the right music can stand alone as something beautiful in its own right, but become something even more powerful when tied to a living, breathing world. Now, let's be very real. Clair Obscur might not live up to what it feels like right now to me. I know that. It could fall apart halfway through, it could lose its heart by the end, it could end up just another beautiful promise that couldn't hold itself together. But even knowing that, and even knowing how often it happens these days, I still find myself hoping. Because if it doesn't lose itself, if it really does carry that imagination, that sadness, that beauty all the way through that it seems to be showing right now, then Clair Obscur could be something we don't see very often anymore. A Western RPG that dares to be different, not by chasing the past, not by copying anyone else, but by daring to imagine its own way forward. A game that doesn't just build another world, but paints one with its own colours, its own feeling, its own soul. And who knows, maybe it'll be the first brushstroke of something special. Wait, what? This isn't a Kingdom Hearts video? Am I actually sticking to talking about brand new different things? And I'm not taking several months or 2 years to upload? Yeah, I know, it's crazy work, I know, but this was a video I've been meaning to make for a minute because this game has been on my radar ever since it was announced. Now, the issue was I didn't know exactly how to articulate what exactly I wanted to say about it, or if it was even worth making an entire video to talk about it, but given that the game is dropping later this month, I just wanted to put something together that showed the potential I saw in it, especially because if it actually does turn out to be good, well, I can turn around and say, I told you so. And if it doesn't, well, we can talk shit about that too. But until then, my name is Next Gen Novelist, and that's all I've got to say, and I'm out. Peace.